Commencing Atlas System Suit Initialization. User initialization sequence complete.
No Man's Sky. The big name game that kept everyone on their toes. A game that swept the globe. A company that rose to fame so quick, and a vision that was shared among many other Starstruck fans. Hey there guys, I'm Ryan from Orbit TV, and this is my documentary explaining the hype, downfall, and redemption of this infamous game. I chose to make this to just spread awareness of how far this game has come, but also the history behind it, how it changed from one thing to another, and the problems it faced during the development process. And while the game's current version is outstanding, the game was a little bit different back in 2016. Unfortunately, for a game that promised everything at its launch, it was received, well, you can see for yourself. In this documentary, we will be exploring the incredible story of how a game so amazing got pushed down right to the ground, but still manages to be a huge name in the gaming industry. With that, I welcome you to the first part of this documentary, Shoot for the Stars. No Man's Sky was first announced to the public in 2013 at a gaming event called VGX. The gameplay trailer was a world premiere, so obviously this is the first time that anyone had ever seen it. Alongside this world premiere, Sean Murray was interviewed for the first time about his game. Now, bearing in mind this was the first time he has ever spoken about the game, so these were the first things that people heard about it.
We're joined right now by Hello Games' Sean Murray.
So what was your vision for this game? Because you look at Joe Danger, such a different game than this. This is hugely ambitious, procedural. Tell us about how it works.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't want to be typecast. I mean, we're kind of an indie studio, and we want to do loads of different things. And I guess with this game, we wanted to make something that was a science fiction game, right? And there are, like, lots of science fiction games, but they're normally... Like, when I say that, you picture Space Marines, right? You picture, like, the post-apocalypse. You picture dystopia, you know? And that's not what I picture when I think of sci-fi. Sci-fi, for me, is the books that I grew up with, right? Is actual fiction, is like Asimov and Clarke and Heinlein and people like that. But as well as that, when I close my eyes and I picture it, I think of, I think of the covers. I think of, like, Chris Foss and Mobius and people. I picture that like desolate landscape, that crashed spaceship, and that kind of planet just hanging in the horizon.
There's an online component to it as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge game. Like, I can't really do that justice, right? So we wanted to make a game about exploration, and we wanted to make something that was real, right? In our game, when you stand, like, on a planet and you see a mountain, and if that mountain is like 3 miles away or wherever it is, and you can see it, you can walk there, and you can go and you can explore it, right? But if you see, like I was describing to you, like that planet on the horizon, which you see in the trailer, that's a real place. Wow. And you can see features on it, and you can get in your ship and you can go there. It's always first person. Okay. There's combat when you're on the planets. There's combat in space,
yeah.
but it's like I was trying to say. It's a real world and it's a real universe. So, kind of like our universe, you know, it's an adversarial place. It's a dangerous place. So this isn't, you know, I said it was a game about exploration. It's not just kind of wandering about passively, ambiently. You know, these are planets that have an ecology. They have an ecosystem, and you're not necessarily at the top of that chain.
So is everyone's game procedural? I mean, is everyone's game different? Am I playing by myself, or are we all kind of coming together in the?
We're all playing in the same universe, and there is persistence there. If I do something significant,
It's not.
Bold idea. I mean, you guys are literally building your own like massively multiplayer world that's procedurally generated. And is there anything that this game doesn't have?
This is the very first interview that gets people hyped. All of the features promised in the game, the 18 quintillion planets, the space combat, and the evolving universe. It all seems so amazing, and every single person got on board with this idea. All of this, for a sci-fi fan, was literally the perfect game. However, the hype really didn't start to take off straight away until E3 2014. This is when the game hit big, as the first indie game developer shown on a Sony conference. Now E3 is the biggest gaming event of the year, so Hello Games struck gold when they had a chance to show their game here. This is where it kicked off. This is where the ignition started, and this is where the game went from what felt like an indie game to a massive AAA scale game. 2014 was Hello Games' year, and this was just the beginning. Just like VGX 2013, Sean Murray had the chance to talk about his game multiple times during the E3 conference, the first being the press conference showcased straight after the trailer.
Thank you. Feeling a lot of emotions right now. I'm Sean. I'm from Hello Games. We're a tiny little indie studio. We're a group of friends making No Man's Sky. It's a science fiction game, I guess inspired by the kind of sci-fi that I grew up with. The battered book covers of Heinlein, Asimov, Clarke. Just worlds that I wanted to escape to but never could. We've created a procedural universe. It's infinite and it's one that everyone can share. This universe that we've created, it's so vast, it's so boundless, it's actually infinite, and we don't even know what's out there. When the game releases, every player who picks up a pad and plays is going to help us discover a little bit more.
Sean Murray was also invited to GameSpot's talk, in which they asked him a few questions regarding the game. Now I'll showcase a short compilation of questions and answers which seem to really up the ante for the game.
So things that you can do, like you actually see resources and things like that.
Yeah.
You know, and you're scanning for those. Those are really valuable. You could be scanning for creatures or whatever. You could also be fighting those creatures. That could be something that you decide to do, right? Wipe out a species or whatever, you know. But then in space as well, there is so much to do. But, you know, between like trading, fighting, you know, forming allegiances, whatever you want to do within that. And we just want to create a universe that has emergent gameplay, I guess, and that the players will find that themselves. And you're the very first player, and you bring up your galactic map when you're in that galaxy. Like, everything will be there.
Yeah.
And you will see, like, everything on the map. You will be able to go to all the planets and all the suns and moons and everything like that. But they will just say unknown, because nothing's been discovered yet.
Right. So the planets themselves are a known quantity, but it's like finding what's there.
You know that they're there, but you don't know whether they're hospitable. You don't know whether there's resources there. You don't know whether there are space stations. You don't know whether there are trading posts. You know, anything like that. And then as you explore more, you will find those things and you can upload that information.
Yeah.
And that map is being filled out, but not just by you, by everybody.
Yeah.
So even if you don't want to cooperate with people, they are helping you. You know, together, you know, what we find is that people are naturally building almost like routes, right? You say, where I am, there's nothing known around me.
Yeah.
But I can see over there, if I make a journey over there, there's kind of this nice plotted out route
Okay.
where I can see some...
So you guys seem to be very much like focusing on discovery rather than, say, economics. Like if you look at something like Eve or...
Right, exactly. Play the, you know, I can play for hundreds of hours and I will never see that.
Yeah.
You know, I will never visit the planets that you've been to. That's just how.
But I
how it
want
is.
you to come visit my planet.
Yeah.
A lot more questions about the soundtrack. Obviously, you're using that. The multiplayer, then, in that respect, it almost seems like will coming across somebody else be like a moment? Will it be something that happens all the time in day-to-day gameplay, or will it be like something you'll actually have to like put time into trying to do?
In terms of multiplayer, you know, like we're not building an MMO. That isn't the type of game that we're making, right? Like it's almost an anti-social game because MMOs try and like put you into lobbies and push you together. We're firing everyone across the universe. They'll probably never see each other, but there is the ability to communicate and work with other people. But if you want to, I won't go into loads of the details, but if you want to think about games that I really admire would be like Journey and how it does it, Dark Souls and how it does multiplayer. You know, those are games that experience for me is really fitting.
Sean Murray is a genius at creating a hype for his game, especially with some of his answers. In reply to a question about what do you do in the game, he never really answers the question straight away. He more mentions some of the things that you can do. He mentions how you can wipe out an entire species. Now, in the final game, this is far from the case, but at the time, this could have been possible, and in fact, this was definitely a large talking point about the game. He also never straight out denies the claims that you can't play with friends, but it will take a long time to find them. This really is the beginning of the No Man's Sky hype train.
The variation was the one that always caught me. Even now when I watch the old trailers, there's something about that pre-release aesthetic with the colours and the landscapes and the animals and stuff like that fucking sandworm. That's the kind of stuff which always excited me. And when I watch the old trailers now, I'm like, I would happily explore every inch of this planet. So I would definitely say that, 100%, 100%.
I was hooked instantly. The main feature that really interested me was just the procedural generation. I mean, at the time, like no other game, I think it was part of like Minecraft or something, had ever really worked with procedural generation. So that did interest me and how that would work and like the amazing things like that engine could create really intrigued me.
So the fact that the game itself could just generate landscapes on the fly with a cohesive but still wildly different tone every time, it kind of made me feel nostalgic for games that I played in the past. My first game was Starflight. So there were other features that felt really amazing, like for example trading combat stuff, but the procedural part, that's what took me.
All seems to be going well for Sean Murray and the team, but what you probably didn't realise is that in January of that same year, Hello Games Studio was unfortunately flooded. This meant all of their work on No Man's Sky was lost, everything they had developed for it was floating in water, and their entire studio was a complete mess. So just how did they create this demo in time for E3 2014? It's not really an unknown secret that the entire E3 event was scripted and handcrafted. It's in the game files of the PC version. The issue was, Hello Games wanted to up the ante from their 2013 trailer, but probably didn't have too much to work with, so they had to quickly craft something for the biggest video game event of the year. Sean Murray has stated that during the development process, they were under constant pressure from Sony, so this probably didn't help. The point of the matter is that this is unfortunately what people expected from the game, as in most arguments these trailers are used for reference. 2015 was another great year for Hello Games. The first major event for them was E3 2015. This was another chance for Sean Murray to showcase his game and how far it had come from the previous year. The game was met with a very positive reception, and Sean Murray made a great choice not to showcase too much about the game. E3 2015 was the place where a lot of people heard about the game, but it still wasn't nowhere near as popular as E3 2014. Hello Games also got extremely lucky this year, as it was their first time around of IGN Firsts. For those that don't know what an IGN First is, it's a month-long coverage of a game. In this case, it would be No Man's Sky. They get exclusive details, gameplay, and interviews with the developers. In 2015, IGN was doing extremely well in video game journalism. It was actually one of the most popular sources for it, so naturally, this sort of event got a lot of people hyped. Over the course of just a month, IGN released 9 different videos on No Man's Sky, the first of which being an 18-minute gameplay demo of the game.
Or I discover a creature or something like that, then I can upload it, I'll get some money for that, and depending on how hostile the planet was, how hard it was to find, or the same goes for a creature, then I'll get varying.
All of these videos garnered an exceptional amount of views, and Hello Games' little project was really becoming something more than they anticipated. This hype train had no sign of slowing down, with more coverage from GameSpot, PlayStation, and Game Informer. Undoubtedly, the biggest show of the year was Sean's performance on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert.
Same star system.
Do we ever get to see ourselves?
No, you don't see yourself, so the only way for you to know what you look like is for somebody else to, to see you.
Can you run into other people, other players on the game?
Yes, but the chances of that are incredibly rare, just because of the size of what we're building.
Wow.
This entire interview has become a staple point for haters of the title, as Sean Murray stated in the clip that you can only see yourself if another player sees you. Obviously, this could have been in development at the time, but for an announcement that big on national television, it really wasn't a good look for Sean.
I don't know how he would have done it differently, because people were excited from what Sean said. So if Sean didn't say anything, I'm not entirely sure how the hype would have worked, but I think he probably could have been a little more reserved and not said, yes, this will happen, this could happen, possibly, all that shit. Like, he didn't need to do that. He could have just said yes, no, and not sort of hinted at shit, but didn't specifically say.
I think pre-launch could have been a bit more transparent. For example, Sean was like, hey, they had these grand goals for the entire game, like, as in how they handled interactions. For example, a fish is gonna grab a bird out of the sky and it's gonna drag it down. I think they could have done something like a blog or something, but yeah, general transparency, I guess.
2016 was probably the biggest year for Hello Games, but was also probably the most nerve-wracking for them too. Their year is kicked off with a lot of expectations, not only from fans, but from the press as well. In April, IGN yet again hosted Hello Games for another month-long coverage on IGN First.
I think when we've shown the game off previously, we've been doing something like we've been on stage at E3 and things like that, and
5 videos were created this time, and with the pilot video gaining over 4 million views. Considering at the time of release, No Man's Sky was still meant to launch in June, a lot of people were very excited to get their hands on the game. Alongside the month-long review, Anthony Carboni also got a chance to play the game on the PlayStation's YouTube channel. This video actually got a lot of people mad or frustrated, as they really didn't like Anthony's playstyle. Disaster struck for Hello Games. Numerous sources were claiming the game had been delayed. The community cried, this was real. Hello Games' original release of June was pushed back to August the 9th. Of course, many people were upset by this, but the game's loving community were happy the game was just going to be worked upon. This wait was definitely overshadowed by the release of 4 pillar trailers, the first being Explore. These trailers were staggered over the month of July, and needless to say, this was the final stopping point for the hype train. People were so on board with this game, the Reddit was exploding, every content creator's channel was garnering hundreds of thousands of views, everyone wanted to know what this game was, what it was about, and when they could get their hands on it. Luckily for the people that wanted to know all this news, a very lucky player by the name of Damien paid $1,300 to play the game almost 3 weeks before everyone else, and boy oh boy did he get a lot of attention. Not only did he leak pretty much every aspect of the game, he got to the center, which was hyped up to be this long running journey, in just 30 hours. Sean mentioned that this should take hundreds of hours, so needless to say, the community was up in flames. Sean was quick to post a tweet pleading fans not to watch the leaks and not to spoil it for themselves, but these videos that Damien uploaded got millions of views worldwide. Now imagine this, it's August 6th, you're 3 days away from release, and not only does the UK version get pushed back to an August 10th release, the PC version gets pushed to August 12th. For some fans, this was the last straw, as Sean was barraged with hate all over Twitter, people cancelling their pre-orders, and some people even sending him death threats over these delays. But, in the long run, none of this really mattered for everyone, because in just a few days, No Man's Sky was going to launch over consoles and PCs worldwide. The world was about to witness this amazing game, and be lost inside an ever-evolving universe. As Sean states multiple times, the universe was about to be yours.
It's now received the lowest possible rating on Steam with 88% negative reviews.
Not because as customers, we were lied to by Sean Murray.